Let's dive into React. Head over to 04 React.js part of the PERN starter. We can do that by simply cding back into the root of the application and then cding into 04 React. Once you're there, we can set up React by following the documentation from Vite. Vite is a front-end build tool. So if you click Get Started and then scroll down to Actual Installation, you'll be able to see how you can quickly scaffold your first Vite project. So simply copy this command or write it with me by running npm create vite add latest, and you can also add a / to create it in the current folder. Then install the create vite installer, and it'll ask you a couple of questions, such as current directory is not empty. We can say ignore files and continue. We are doing React right here as part of the PERN stack, so choose React. If you want, you can totally go with TypeScript here, but since this is just a crash course part of the course, I'll stick with JavaScript. We can use this experimental roll down Vite. I don't think it's going to make any difference for this crash course. And we can run npm install to set up our project. It'll quickly spin it up on localhost 5173, so you can command click it to open it up right in your browser. You'll be able to see just a simple front end, which is already good. It's refreshing to see something actually moving on the screen as we've been looking at the backend code for so long. Since we're working with frontend, I'll collapse the browser right here so we can see both the code and the website at the same time, now that we actually have something to see. And I'll start by completely deleting the app.css file right here, which will remove the styles. So you also have to remove it from the app.jsx. If you save it, you'll see that some of the styling will break. Then if you head over to index.css, you can also remove everything from here, and we'll write a couple of styles of our own. We'll do a typical CSS reset by selecting all elements and setting the margin and padding to 0 and the box sizing to border box. Then we'll set the body elements with a font family of Arial, and we can also use sans serif as the backup. We'll then do a background color of, let's do hash F0, 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 a color of the text of hash 333, a line height of 1.5, and a padding of 20 pixels. This will give us a nice clean slate so we can actually see some cars on our homepage. So to be able to do that, head over to app.jsx and remove everything from this page, but quickly spin up a new functional component by running rafce. This is a shortcut that creates a new React arrow function export component, so you can save it and you'll be able to see the app. If for whatever reason this shortcut didn't work for you, you might need to head over to plugins or extensions and then search for modern React snippets and install it. You might need to reload your IDE and then it'll work. Once we're there, you can render an H1 that'll say something along the lines of welcome to the car store. That's what this whole demo example has been about. Then we can further style this element by heading over to our index.css and selecting H1 elements, give them a text align of center, a color of 333 if needed, and a font size of 2 rem to make it a bit larger. Now, for the first time ever, we'll create a new component. This is what React is all about, making sure that our UI is composed of multiple repeatable components. So right within the source folder, I'll create a new folder called components. Within it, you can create a new component called car.jsx and run rafce. This will spin up a new car component. Then if you head back over into the app, right below the title, you can now render a UL, an unordered list, and render the car component that we just created. Of course, this is just one single div right now, but no matter how much code we put into this car card and we style it and we render additional JSX, we'll be able to easily replicate it without duplicating the code as many times as we want. So you'll be able to see 3 different car cards. And this may feel like we're rushing a bit, and that's because this is only the beginning. React has so many things, from components to props that we can pass into those components to state, hooks, effects, context, routing, and so much more. So if you want a proper beginner to advanced React knowledge, including hooks, React server components, state management, and for now, you'll continue with the part that matters for this project. And that is connecting your frontend to your backend and learning how to create a full stack application. So head over to your 03 folder, which is actually a fully working backend with a functional database. And for that, we'll need a new terminal. So I will rename this to frontend, and I will create a new one called backend. Within it, I will cd into 03, and I will run npm run dev to run it on localhost 3000. Now we have two applications running, frontend in one terminal and backend into another. This is real full stack. So now, if you remember, if you make a regular request directly from the browser in your URL bar, and you type something like localhost 3000 /API v1 cars, what kind of an API request will this make? Which verb will it use? It's of course the GET request. So if everything is working correctly, and if your backend is running, if you run this, you should be able to get a JSON output of the two cars we've created using our HTTP client not that long ago. But now we want to make sure that our front-end application makes that call, not us. And we can do that right here within this application. I'll do that by creating a new use state. So you can use the use state snippet, which will quickly create it. The name will be cars, set cars at the start equal to an empty array. And make sure to import use state coming from React. Then we'll use another hook called use effect, which requires the callback function as the first parameter, and then the dependency array as the second. This dependency array, if empty, means that whatever is within this callback function will be called as soon as this component, or page in this case, mounts. So in this case, only at the start when we reload the page. So what do we want to do then? Well, we want to use a fetch request to point to API v1 cars. And then once we get it, we want to get the data by running response.json on it. Then we want to extract the data and we want to set it to the state like this. And of course, if some error happens, we can catch it and console log it. So now let's console log the data that we're getting right here by saying console log cars. I will reload the page and open up inspect element where we can open up the console. In this case, I'll go ahead and put it at the bottom so we can see it a bit better. And we do get an empty array, which makes me think that we didn't successfully fetch the data. And there's also a syntax error talking about an unexpected token right here. So maybe the response that we got from here wasn't good. So let's point it to HTTP :// localhost 3000 and then API v1 cars. If you do that, you'll notice that they're operating on different ports. Our frontend is on port 5173, but the backend is on port 3000. And even though both use localhost, the browser will treat each combination of protocol, domain, and port as different origins. So because of this, when you make this GET request, the browser blocks it unless the backend explicitly allows this origin. This browser-enforced rule is called CORS, Cross-Origin Resource Sharing. And CORS exists for security reasons. It prevents websites from making unauthorized requests to the other sites. If the backend does not send headers, such as access control allow origin, then the browser will stop the request with a CORS error. So to fix this issue, Vite lets us create a proxy so that API requests appear to come from the same origin. You can head over into your Vite config right here, and then right below the plugins, you can say server, define the proxy, then say /API is actually going to come from the target localhost 3000, and change origin will be set to true. If you now go back and remove this part that we prepended to the URL, so now it's just API v1 cars. If you go back and reload, you'll see that no longer we'll have that cross error. But you'll also see that we have an empty array. That's because useEffect by default is not asynchronous, and this fetch request is. So this console log will not wait for the fetch to finish. So to be able to see the cars, we have to put it outside where we actually want to use them. Go ahead and save it, and you'll see 2 cars that are coming from our database. Right here on the front-end side. Just how exciting is that? But it's going to be even more exciting when we can actually display that data on the front end. So what we have to do is pass the data to our component. So we can first map over the cars by saying cars.map, where you get the data about each car. And then you'll create a new car component for each one of these with a key equal to car.id. You have to give a key since we're mapping over it. And then we'll provide the full car data. You can either do it like this, or you can just spread all the car properties to be able to immediately receive them over in the car component. So now, to be able to see the data, hop into the car component and let's display it. We can display it in a very simple way by making each one of these cars a list item. And within it, we can start displaying different tags, such as the make, like this. And the question is, how do we get the make out of this component that we're passing? That's happening through props. You simply have to destructure them at the top because we're passing them into the component while we're mapping over it. So simply destructure the make, the model, year, and the price. Duplicate this 4 times. And for the second one, simply say model. Then for the third one, it's going to be the year. And for the fourth one, we want to display the data about the price. So simply display it right here and save it. And just like that, you'll be able to see that 2 new car components have appeared on the front end. We have the one with a make of Tesla, Model 3, year 2023, and so on, and then the other one with a BMW 4 Series. Now, if you head over to our HTTP, because that's the only way in which we can add new cars at the moment, head over to the post request and create a new post, such as, we can copy this part right here and duplicate it, but this time we will change the actual variables. Well, let's do something like a Ford. We can do F-150, which is going to be 2025, and the price will be a bit more expensive. Now, if you go ahead and click send, as soon as you reload, you'll be able to see that a new car got added into the database. Then the front end made a request to our backend, which spoke to the database and retrieved that car for us and showed it to the user. You can see that the styling right now, this is it. The next step of this would, of course, be to implement a form on the front end that would not only make a GET request, but rather a POST request, so that through this front-end application, you can retrieve the cars, but also create them. So if you want to take a stab at it, go ahead and do it.